All right, so today we're going to break into a project review with one of the executives of this project, and I think it's one that you guys are going to like because it really associates well with what's happening in the AR/VR space. Obviously, we saw the Apple Vision Pro get launched today, and we've seen kind of this evolution of AR/VR tokens start to move a little bit here within the crypto markets. So I wanted to dive in a little deeper on a project that we've covered here before. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me today, of course, is none other than Ben Fairbanks, who is the CEO and founder over at RedFox Labs. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So Ben, you've been on our show many times. If you guys have not checked out our previous videos, you can. Just go over to Paul Barron Network. You'll find there's Ben right there, all the way back in 3 months ago, a year ago. Man, we've been covering RedFox for a little while, so that's been good.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, I think, when you look at the metaverse and you also look at this idea of what AR/VR could play into, which would obviously associate some with the metaverse. First, before we get into that, Ben, I want to talk a little bit about where you guys and what you guys have been doing since we talked last. Any new games, any new applications that you can share?
Yeah, so we've got an arcade now. So the arcade is supposed to be a couple of things. It's a great place for socializing, but it's got beer pong. We've got a chess room, and we have consoles. So we're already fielding requests from other games that want to integrate. And that's a great way to do it because we can do not only the VR 3D, we can also do the non VR games as well on a flat console. So that's really important, and it's a big addition. We've rolled out the new Slam World for COGS, and we've of course got Fear, which is the multiplayer game where you have to capture the flag, so to speak. You've got to get in and get a diamond and get out. So that's been a big addition for us, along with AI. AI has been the major game changer for us, and I think the biggest release, and that's only been the tip of the iceberg. So what we've actually done is allowed it to, you can actually have a wristwatch menu, and you can vocalize exactly what you want to customize in your personalized spaces or districts. And that menu will change to the different environments you go to tell you what AI power you have in every district. So I think we're the first to do AI voice-controlled prompts for customization, and that is just going to go into turbo in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I was looking at your tweet here on that, AI integrations, latest build. Now you can get this, of course, now on RFOX VALT. So a lot, in terms of the response from the community, what has that been like for you guys? What have you seen from devs, but also just in general, players and even in some cases, maybe the commercial aspect of this?
Yeah, I think that sort of the response has been people are talking about AI as a buzzword, but they haven't actually integrated anything. So how have you been able to do that so quickly? But we've used tools that are already publicly available, and we've just gone a step further. Instead of saying type them in, use your voice. Now, I think people thought that was a bit of a novel concept, and they said, why wouldn't you just type it? If you're in a headset, you don't want to have to fumble around with a keypad or trying to bring up a virtual keyboard and toggle away. So we think this is the very beginning, because we want people to be able to go in and voice couches and pianos and assets and items in their houses without actually having to be a coder. So our ultimate goal is to be able to collaborate as a group of people going in there and saying, hey, let's decorate this district together. And we don't need coding capabilities or skills. And you can do that through AutoGPT, ChatGPT, Blender, combining tools that are available on the market to create Unity assets. You can then mint those assets into an NFT, and someone else can go and buy those off a marketplace. So we want it to be that you don't have to take your headset off. You don't have to go to an outside car or an outside program. And that's what takes us such a huge amount of time to build, is to try and say, when you come in here and once this is fully scaled and going, you're not going to have to leave or take your headset off or worry about what you're doing or where you're doing it. You just talk it through and it will do it for you.
Yeah, so you just hit on a lot of things, I think, that have been a bit of a conundrum here within the AR/VR space, because obviously the devices, the controller aspect, and then obviously with what Apple releases with the hand gestures, now have kind of changed the game. And it kind of goes to your point. Voice will be a big part of this, the eye tracking when you get into the headsets. I was listening to Marquez Brownlee a little bit yesterday, and just his explanation of it was pretty amazing in terms of its ability, talking about the Apple Vision Pro. But that to me starts to lead into a lot of what we're going to see in Metaverse and Web3 gaming. And I think for you guys developing on that, you're ahead of the, kind of the head of the curve here. So congrats to what you guys are doing. When you look at that and you think about, just the aspect of AI in general, and you go into what NVIDIA is doing from their AI standpoint, and you look at maybe the future of NPC characters, what are your thoughts on how far RedFox is going to be going in that area? What is some of your roadmap that you guys have planned for that?
We see AI as being almost, in the old days, you'd say to people, if you're late to work, you get a strike. And if you're late to work 3 times, you get 3 strikes. We're already taking the approach of if you're not using AI to customize and to do a better job of what you're doing, that's a sin. We're picking up code errors from developers submitting builds to us for certain areas and aspects, and we're fixing it with GPT. So we'll do a lot with that. And to give you an example, we're already working on the fact that you could go and buy an RFOX citizen, so one of our avatars, from OpenSea, for example, and they would have different attributes. One might be a sales agent, one might be a marketer, one might be a game dev, and they'd be programmed. So then BMW could come along, buy one of our AI injected avatars or agents. They would then be able to say, let's load in the BMW sales scripts. And you then have a virtual agent who will work in your store as a sales agent, who you can set sales targets for, who will try things within the confines of your rules until they get those mixes right. They will never call in sick. They'll never take a day off. They'll be there 24/7 to help people, and they're intuitive in their learning. So we've got already that in the works. We've got assistants that will walk around with you and bring up maps, buy tickets for questions. We already are trying to put it into a familiar sort of being that hangs around with you, that can never have a flat battery, that can always play you in beer pong or whatever you want to do in the vault. So we think that AI is going to be the most significant component. It'll be more significant than VR, more significant than any other component that we have, because it will allow us to bring tools to people that don't have the skills to otherwise use those tools.
Well, I think you're right. It opens up a lot of landscape for development. We were just showing some of the B-roll for you guys when Ben was talking there. That's NVIDIA ACE, which is kind of this whole idea around generative AI. And that's the potential here, especially as you leap into what's happening in Web3 and kind of the vision of going forward. A lot of that kind of technology and the capabilities you guys are talking about with just ChatGPT and other tool sets out there. And the cool thing is we're just getting started. When you look at this, Ben, and you look at your roadmap, you kind of understand, clearly understand a lot of where AI is going. What are some of the things you feel, beyond like the BMW example that you just gave, that would really leap forward games and or commercial activity in Web3?
I think the ability for people to be able to, so the number one aspect for all of these platforms is a socializing aspect, right? It doesn't matter if you've got great game or a great experience. People want to socialize, and they want to be able to do that in a borderless way. If you can allow people to customize and work together, there's no better feeling than a group of people coming in and developing a game or experience together that then they can commercialize really quickly. And that's what's really important, is you don't have to go and think about something, create a 12-month roadmap, try and build something at a tremendous expense and then hope that it'll work. Now it's going to be fly or die. It's going to be quick. Yeah. You're going to put things to the sword very, very quickly. So I think that AI is a definite game changer. And I'll tell you the one issue that I see, though, is a lot of crypto projects have spent a lot of time and money building tools or aspects that weren't there before. And they'll hang on to those even if they're inferior to what's coming along with this new technology. So there's no place for sentiment or to be sentimental when you're talking about bleeding edge tech and fast moving tech. You just got to throw it away and replace it with something that's going to provide a better user experience and a better experience for creators. You cannot be sentimental. You'll get left behind.
Yeah, I think you hit on a very good point there. That's happened in tech throughout the years. You know, if you go back all the way back into the original OGs of how OS systems were built, being able to leap forward in how a lot of the technology was really becoming much more usable from a user aspect, and just to your point, being able to get a lot more people in faster, I think is going to be huge. Speaking of that, RedFox VALT. So I'm looking at your website right now. Obviously, you guys can go and download over on Google Play. But you also have SideQuest. Now, this is one that we've talked about before here on the show. And it's kind of unique because of there's an opportunity here, obviously, with MetaQuest, but others. Explain SideQuest to us so our users can completely understand how you guys are integrated in.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a developer hub for applications to get people to come in and test and to use those. It's not actually necessarily, some of those things are also on the actual Quest store, but some of them are not. And SideQuest is a great way for developers to go with early iterations or early builds, get user feedback and testers to come in and have a look and have a play around with it. So it's a really good sort of sandbox for the actual later step of Quest store. And Quest, you know, it's been around for a long time. And I think last count that I saw, they're up to only 577 apps or something have been added over the course of time. So they don't add many. So this is a really good opportunity to sort of test to see whether you've got the demand and you're good enough, so to speak. But it's a great way for devs to get instant feedback on their builds.
Yeah, I was looking at your SideQuest location right here on RFOX VALT. So I'm surprised at how many games and also experiences are really within it right now. It's a pretty robust system. Do you think this has long-term appeal for developers to kind of roll out and test things and see how things are going to respond within AR/VR?
100%. So we've got districts, and each district is its own instance, right? So even though it's on our platform, you've got to be careful how you say the maintenance, but you'll be able to upgrade and maintain your district. So if you want to provide an update, you don't have to wait for us to bring out a new version of the Vault. You can just apply it, and then what will happen is if a user comes back into your district, they'll just do a patch upload. So it might be 28 meg or whatever it is, and it'll just load and off you go. But this allows people to plug in different types of technologies on our platform and to trial those things. And so we'll have sandbox areas as well. But those districts are infinitely scalable to a certain degree. And we've already got companies that have multiple games that are going to have one district with 5 different game environments inside of one district.
Does this avoid the meta tax, you know, the percentage? How does that work for developers?
Yeah, so SideQuest is obviously different. We, if you go onto most of the app stores, you're paying 30% on the traditional ones. The thing with ours is, as it currently stands, we'll have to abide by whatever marketplace we go on. But from a platform perspective, we charge a 2% transaction fee, and half of that goes back to the project and half to the users. So it's different for every environment, and every environment has different frame rate requirements, different different requirements for what you can and can't have, your illustrations, the way you situate and position yourself. So it's a very, very interesting thing, and we've always had the perspective of we want to provide great developer tools to the public and to the users, and we don't want to build for a particular end user device, and that shows already because we're on VR Quest, we've already got iOS, we've already got Android. Our role is to get as many end users in as possible. So we will move with the technology and the times, but we're building on really core infrastructure that's widely accepted across all of these platforms.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really key. All right, so we're gonna leap into the topic of the the Vision Pro, where Apple is going, what this does to maybe the landscape, because obviously Apple with the biggest app system, biggest, I would say, developer community in the world. I want to play a clip that we put together for you, just to get your response, because this, of course, is all about the price. We're going to start with price, so everybody kind of gets their head around this. And don't think too much about this. We'll explain that here in a second. But I'm going to play this clip just to give you an idea of what happened when they launched the price.
Apple Vision Pro starts at $34.99. It will be available early next year on Apple.com and at Apple retail stores in the U.S. with starts at $34.99.
Holy shit, dude!
It will be available early next year on Apple.com, coming later next year.
3.5K. These were crazy.
Ideal time to share in-depth
This is
information about this
dystopian.
incredible new platform. With
These will live on
and we
another
will work with them
planet.
over the coming
Holy
months to
fuck,
create
dude.
new and starts at $34.99.
What?
It will be available early next year on Apple.com.
What?
And at Apple retail stores in the U.S. WWDC provides
Starts.
the ideal time to share in-depth information about this incredible new platform. with
Where does it end
developers.
up at?
And we will work with them over the coming months.
Apple Vision. So not a lot of people very happy about this $3,500 price. Again, I defend it a little bit because I've seen the iterations from Apple throughout the years, all the way back to the 2007 iPhone that was 3 times the price of the BlackBerry at the time, which was the king of the hill, and nobody even could imagine paying $200 for a BlackBerry at that time, but that was what the prices were. So I look at it, all right, this is the Pro. Most likely we're going to see a lot more iterations of this, downstreaming it maybe into an SE version, and maybe even getting into a sub 1,000 or a sub 500. Maybe. We'll see. I think Apple knows where the future of this. My question to you is this. First, does this change anything for Web3? What is your opinion? You guys are developers out there. You're already building in this space, going pretty much bullseye into what Apple's talking about. What does this mean for RedFox?
First of all, I can be pretty controversial here. I don't think it is expensive, and I think the reason it's not expensive is because it's not trying to compete with Meta. It's a completely different device. It is competing with the XR3. It's the only competitor to an XR3. It is half the price with a lot of the power, but obviously it is set up for designers and creators and builders. It doesn't have controls. It is very much on the AR side more so than the VR, and it is not really a traditional gaming device. They'll obviously have add-ons and things that you can do to bring that into play, but this is a different type of play. People that are looking at buying the MacBooks will be considering whether or not they should just switch to a headset. It is completely different to what a lot of people thought it was going to be, and I think people still think of it as a competitor to Meta and to Quest, MetaQuest, and it's not. MetaQuest will still sit in its own world and its own track. This is a very different device, and I think that will sort of play out as people sort of get their head around that a little bit more. But what they're doing is putting together, as they always do, the best technology, the most powerful device in the most beautiful wrapper they can. They've done weird things with the battery to try and make sure the headset weight isn't too heavy, and you're only going to get 2 hours and have a cord, but people are used to tethering. So it's a different device. It's very difficult to compare that to a MetaQuest 2 or 3. It's much more comparable to an XR3. So compared to that, it's cheaper, but it's a different field. And I don't think anybody knows no one knows what the SDK is going to bring, and no one knows how having no controllers is going to work. We've got eyes, voice. The hand tracking is apparently not super smooth, but the eyes are amazing. So, I think it is a game changer from the perspective of AR and from bringing into play your iOS, 100,000 apps and MacBook and your work in front of you on a screen. As far as a gaming device, I don't think it brings that much yet.
Yeah, well, that was kind of our assessment, is gaming is going to be lackluster here. But I look at this now, could it go to that? Because it's going to be a natural evolution, of course. I saw Iger, kind of step on stage, showed a lot of CGI of what could be, the vision of what Disney wants to do. Pretty amazing. I would agree with you. I don't necessarily think this is a head-to-head battler with going to be the commonplace, VR headset. I think it's going to be a different kind of compute platform. But I think it's also going to open up a lot of opportunities for Web3. It's just going to be a natural evolution of different kind of use case. For sure. NFTs, the utilization. I was surprised just on the visual of it. And when we go back to the design on this, let me see if I can pull that back up and pull it in. I don't know if I can. Let me close it down and go back to the Vision Pro. But my point is that a lot of people were getting a little bit confused that this was actually a see-through. That's not. That's actually a rendering of your eyes. So it's closing you off. And it's giving you a visual, but when you're engaged with something, it kind of shuts that down. This again changes out I was listening to Marquez Brownlee again on this, and he kind of talked about the fact that this pretty much eliminates the any kind of peripherals, just the input devices, and then obviously the monitors, which is going to really change the way everything from office setups to home setups you can imagine is going to change pretty dramatically. So I'm still very bullish.
Well, you think about this. Think about it this way. Meta scaled back, right? And metaverses became a dirty word. And we've been talking to lots of partners and clients and all the rest of it. And they say, maybe you want to remove metaverse out of the wording, out of the equation. And a lot of people got down on metaverses. So for Apple to come out and say headsets, regardless of what people think they are, even if they're confused on what it might do, they're saying Apple's going whole hog into an expensive headset. They don't muck around with just trialing things in the market. They carefully plan this. So we know that this type of augmented reality and this type of mixed reality is going to be something that everybody uses and spends time in. So it's provided a resurgence for the space. But I think you're going to catch a lot of people out, because a lot of projects prepared a lot of materials prior to this coming out saying, we'll have Apple integration from day one and you'll be able to play our game on the Apple headset. They're going to have to quickly retract those press releases and announcements, because that's probably not going to be the case.
Okay, so with that being the case, RFOX sets back. You saw this release. Most likely we're going to see the SDK start to roll out. A lot of opportunity. What's next step for RedFox in being able to leap into this ecosystem, if in fact you do?
We've already got people talking to us about using the APIs, SDKs, and tools that we've got to build their own worlds, making a multiverse for us built on RFOX technology. And they can be for things like, for example, Apple devices specifically, or for augmented reality specifically. So I think it's opened up a lot of doors to us that we didn't think were going to open. And these people obviously did think that was going to happen because they were ready. So we're just very honored that we're having those conversations and are trying to work out the technicalities and when the APIs will be ready from our side. But I think it's going to open massive doorways to us. And we have the added benefit, if you've got other people building off your API and using your technology, you're also benefiting from what they're experimenting in and the devices they're using. So we can learn much quicker than if it was just us on our own track by bringing in different partners and having them build on different tracks. So that's going to really, really help us. I don't think it'll ever be all one. Apple are very good at the walled garden, and Meta have upset a few people by making only certain games available on the Meta Quest 3. So there's a walled garden fight for sure and certain, and our job is to sort of say, we'll do what is traditionally closed systems, and we'll open that up.
Well, I think that's going to be very.
If you're different technology, there's a space for you. We have that opportunity.
Yeah, going to be very critical. I would agree with you. Interesting that you say that when you look at this really opening up opportunities for RFox, because obviously you guys have already gone down the AI route, and that in itself is most likely going to be one of the biggest areas of development for not only apps, creators, even if you just think about how, let's move away from just gaming for a minute, just productivity, experiential, NFTs, things of that nature that could roll into a lot of other application use cases within AR through the Apple ecosystem. You guys might be in a really good position here just because of how much advancement you've done in the AR or in the AI space to be able to really leap forward here.
I think you're dead right, and I think Apple still haven't played their ace yet. I think Apple are going to be a major AI player. There's no if, buts, or maybes about that. I think they've got a few aces up the sleeve still. And you're right. I think AI is going to be all consuming. We're hiring AI specific people now. And we're applying it in our workforce inside. If we're not using it internally, then it's very difficult for us to sort of push that externally. So yeah, AI is going to be a major component of what Apple does in the future, and it's also going to be a major component for us. So I see that we're more on the AI track with them than anything else at this particular point in time. The AR is still being fleshed out. The glasses are still years away, but we are very, very quietly confident that because we're building at the lower level, that we can appeal to all end user devices. So internally, our whole project and company is jumping up and down because we know that we've had another tick of validation. We're on the right path here.
Yeah, well, I think your timing is right. We've been following RedFox for quite a while. Obviously, the intrigue around Metaverse, but the evolution that you guys have done within the AI space is pretty impressive. And I think as we go forward and you start to see how these things connect, especially with when the devices get down to realization, meaning retail level, where we'll see a lot. I still think Meta is going to make some new plays. And let's not forget, Samsung and Google have not entered the game just yet. So that's another player that most likely will be there. And then you cannot leave off HTC. If you look at what's happening with HTC,
Yep.
why are you guys not? Have you talked to Pearly over at HTC? We should connect you guys.
Not. Yeah, you should do that. But we've spoken to quite a few now, but we're also speaking to people on the engine side as well. Not as in engine crypto, as in gaming engine.
Right.
Because there's an opportunity there, and again, we're offering something that the engines don't necessarily offer out of the box. If we can sort of have lots of, because don't forget, AI, one of the biggest advantages of that is the data collection and the way you can sort that, and you can provide things much quicker and more instantaneous. So I think that we're providing something that's quite unique, and that will obviously pique the interest of people that are looking to sort of either acquire companies in the Web3 space or look at brands that we're launching through the Vault as an acquisition target. So, everybody's on everybody's radar. It's still a very small space. It's only just starting.
It is. It's very infant. I mean, this is a very, very reminiscent of the mid 90s when the internet first really got going and we started to see a lot of new use cases for it. I think you guys are a perfect match for Viveverse. I was just looking over at what they're doing, around just the number of metaverses that they're launching. And remember, with Viveverse and HTC, there is a wallet connected to this. So you've got a lot of integrations here with it. You've got a market. And then, of course, the avatar aspect of this is another component that I think the key here will be if AI starts to play into that. And I'm still curious. We got to get Ready Player Me and their team back on, because I'm curious how that's going to affect them, in the avatar space on all this for sure. So interesting stuff. All right, last thing out there, Ben, when you look at right now within the crypto markets, a lot of turmoil going on, obviously within the regulation side here in the US, but the market really, I think, forgets that crypto, Web3, blockchain is a global movement. You're in you're in the Pacific Rim. When you look at the growth sectors out there, do you still see the PAC Rim as being one of the core centers of innovation and consumption, or do you think we'll see a lot more development in the EU, possibly in areas like Dubai?
Oh, Dubai's a different beast, isn't it? It's amazing how quickly it's progressing. I think that this region is probably more focused on if you're looking at the users, they're going to have a lower entry point, so they're going to be more Quest focused and VR focused and all the rest of it. But as far as the politics and stuff go, you've seen Hong Kong suddenly started to be able to trade. China can do that under the guise of them. Asia's pulling no punches and sort of capitalizing on what's happening. So I think you're going to see expedited adoption every time there's one step back, which looks like a step forward from regulation in America. Asia sees that as an opportunity to just pounce on that and say, well, you're asleep at the wheel, or you're going to slow yourselves down, or people aren't happy with that outcome, and they're able to act very, very quickly. So I think there's a bit of a war going on a number of different fronts and levels, and I think Asia will, from the user perspective, you'll get the higher end users in Europe and America for stuff like the Apple headsets, but MetaQuest and stuff, and the lower end headsets are going to absolutely fly here in the Pacific and Asia Pacific region.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be an interesting to watch. We're obviously, we see that as kind of the flight of innovation that seems to be occurring here in the United States. I don't know. We still, one of the strongest, if you think about it from a population standpoint and a consumption standpoint, the U.S. is still huge. I don't think we've completely left the building, but we've got an opportunity now ahead of us in the next couple of years to take part in something pretty crazy. Hey, Ben, it's always fun having you on the show. Thank you so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's always great to be here, and you the audience through the bear market, because it's very easy to switch off, and you guys are still producing great content. So thanks for keeping us all informed.
Yep, no problem. We're not going anywhere. We believe in this space in a big way. So the future is here. You just have to kind of believe in what that future is going to look like. But anyway, thanks again for stopping in. All right, guys, if you are listening in, you bet. If you guys are listening in, maybe over on the podcast side of things, make sure and jump over here to the YouTube channel. This is where you get a chance to see a lot of the visuals today that we showed here on this show. So just go over to Paul Barron Network. You'll find us on YouTube. It's very easy. If you're not part of the Diamond Circle, get in now because it's one of the best ways to stay connected. And the cool thing is we have tens of thousands of people that are in the Diamond Circle, and we do a lot of additional content over there, another podcast. Make sure and check that out. It's our Web3 podcast over there. And of course, if you're not following me, make sure and catch me out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechBat.